Hi, I'm Andrew, and I'll be presenting the Engineering 6 dice game for Group 45. So first, players are greeted with the start screen, which shows the rules and the roll button. They can press start, and they can enter their names. The other window right here is to represent the second player for online play. So in the GUI, players can change their background color to different backgrounds. They can also change their icon, depending on which gender they want. And they can also open the rules in order to see reference rules if needed. And they can also have a table which shows the dice roller value. So to start off first, one player presses the start button. And then this randomizes who goes first. So in this case, Joe goes first. So in here, if we press refresh, it reads the ThinkSpeak and it says Joe's turn. In this way, we can roll. We have the animation, and it shows which dice they got and how they scored. So they got 2 1s and 1 5s, making a score of 250, and it switches over to Bob, or player 1 in this case. So player 1, they refresh, and they can see how player 2 scored, and then they roll. And same thing. Player shows who wins, and the other player can also refresh, and they'll see this player as well.
Hi, my name is Crystal. I am in Group 45. So for the randomization of the dice, I created a class named Dice, which I will be referring to as Dice class. And Dice class defines an object that will give you a randomized number between 1 and 6. And to give you that number, I just use the function randi, and I set it between 1 and 6 and 1, 1. Therefore, each time that function runs, you will just get a number between one number between the parameters of 1 and 6. And from there on, dice object is then initialized in player class and will be used to generate an array of random numbers that will be simulating the rolling of 6 different dice.
Hey, this is Justin from Group 45. To begin with, in order to bind with the concept of object-oriented programming, I decided to create 3 classes first: dice, player, and game class. And the dice class just basically contains basic values of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then the player class is contains the player points and also their names. And player class also has the method roll 6 dice. Well, this is because I believe that the player is the one who really takes the action to roll the dice in the game. So this function should belong to the player class. And next we have the game class. The game class contains the methods to count the scores of each player's roll and also guarantee a maximized score based on a sequence I managed to put the boolean statement. Here's the code, and it'll intake the array, which contains 6 values of the based on the 6 rows method I created in the player class, and then it'll output the total scores, and it'll guarantee that each person's score is maximized based on the way I put the boolean statement. And the type class will output the type of the combinations of the 6 dices, whether it's a flush, whether it is 3 of a kind or 4 of a kind. Yep. And then next we have the app designer. And next in terms of the GUI and the reach component, I came up with the idea of making different frames so that each page has its own content to make the art look better. And I added animations to the frame so that the first frame disappears and then the next frame appears. Well, on the actual frame that plays the game, which is page 3, well, I first made animation for displaying the final result of the dice rolling here. So it'll call the game class, and then player 1 will roll the dice once the roll button is hit, and then each image will display the result of the score. And then I also created the added field so that it will count up the scores of each player's dice in the current value added field, which again calls the score method in the game class, and then also the total added field will update the cumulative current scores. And the next thing I did is that I created a class. I created a UI table which will keep track of the scores. I also built the table that displays the combination of dice each turn by using the UI table in App Designer and calling a type function in the game class so that the player knows how their scores are added up. It's right here. And that is pretty much what I've done for this project.
I was also in charge of creating the sound effects for the game. And to do that, I used an already existing function called audio read that basically takes MP3 samples and turns them into arrays. And so the different parts are Y, which is the audio signal, and FS, which is the sample rate. And for the game, I really just had to focus on setting Y to different sample rates in order to get different snippets of the MP3s that I wanted to use. After that, I would simply input it into the function sound, and then once it's in sound, it sends it out of your computer and plays the audio, which is how the sound effects work. Sound, like for example here, I set it so that every time the roll button would be pressed, there would be a mouse click sound effect. However, for some of them, it wasn't as straightforward. Like for example here, for the sound effect I used for the dice roll, I didn't necessarily want the entire 30-second MP3 of dice rolling over and over again. So using, once again, audio read and sound, I simply just took Y, which is the audio signal, and cut it so that it will only play the sample rate from the beginning all the way through 1.5 seconds. Same thing for the start button of the game. I cut out a portion of the Fox intro logo, basically just setting the audio signal to only play the sample rate from 17.5 seconds to 22 seconds. And then from there, it was just about inputting the code for the sound effects under the functions that we wanted the sound effects to be assigned to. So for example, right here, when you start the game, the Fox intro logo will play. And that is all.
Hi, my name is Rahul, and for the reach component of this project, I helped with the animation. The code for that is right here. This is a for loop where in each of those image arrays right here, it flashes a random dice number. And you can see that when you roll the die, flashes, then it finally lands on 600.
All right, and now for the code. So in the code, I did the GUI. So I basically made how it looks. And also for, in case of page 2, I made sure that it makes sure that the player enters their name before being able to press the start button. And if any players are, or any name fields are missing, it notifies the player which name they need to enter using this if else statement. For this part of the GUI, I did basically most of the functionality for the buttons. And when we go a little bit more down, I also did it so that after a player presses the roll button, it disables their roll button and enables the other player's roll button. So right here, it turns the roll button off and enables the other one. And then after that, it also shows whose turn it is. So in this case, it would be player 2's turn after player 1 has won. And then in the start button right here, basically I did it right here. So it disables the start button and hides it after the start button is pressed. And I made the randomizing function for who goes first. So basically sets 1 to 2 randomly. So if it's 1, it enables player 1's control right here, and it shows that player 1 will go first, and vice versa for player 2. Roll 6 dice, same function as the first roll 6 dice. And the roll button, this opens the rule tab when pressed. And the background change, basically it just sets the value of the background as the background theme, and using the switch case, it changes the color based on the drop-down menu's names. And then for player gender, similar thing, shows the value of player 2 of basically the image source. So it switches the image source based on what value is the gender. So if it's male, this, and if it's female, this. And same thing for player 1. Now, I also did ThinkSpeak, and as far as ThinkSpeak goes, properties, this shows the turn channel ID and the score channel ID and the corresponding write keys for those channels. And the startup function, this clears the previous channel of any data that was there before. And as far as rolling the dice goes, we go down here. It basically writes to ThinkSpeak the current first the turn. So from player 1, it goes to player 2 for the turn value right here, where 1 is player 1, 2 is player 2, and also writes the score that the player 1 received. And then as far as start game, same thing, this is the randomizing function. It just writes to the turn channel where the values are 1 or value 2 based on who goes. And for the roll dice button, this basically shows who goes, or this basically just changes control over to another player. So and right here, pause 1, ThinkSpeak right. So this writes basically value 1 after the other player rolls. So this is the exact same thing as the first roll button, just inverted. And for the refresh functionality, basically, once we press refresh, it disables the start button for our player just in case one player pressed the start button. And as far as player turn goes, this basically checks to see whose turn it is, and it enables one corresponding to whose turn it is, and it shows on the display screen it's that player's turn. And then this right here just reads the score that was written earlier when you press the roll button. So here's the total value and the current value. And this constantly checks to see who wins, just so that both players can see the winning screen when press refreshed. All right, and that was my part. Thank you.